Richard Engelbert had everything. A dream life, a perfect family, but behind it all, a dark secret affair with his stepson. When the truth came out, it ended in a brutal murder that shocked everyone. How far can secrets push someone before everything falls apart? You know how sometimes people seem to have it all together? That was Richard Engelbert. On the outside, he looked like the perfect guy. A successful real estate agent driving around Littleton in his sleek black car, living in a beautiful home with his wife Wendy, who was a school principal. They were the couple everyone admired. Their marriage seemed solid, their life perfectly crafted. But here's the thing. Behind closed doors, Richard was living a completely different reality, and it was nothing like the shiny picture he painted for the world. For the past 2 years, Richard had been carrying a secret so heavy, it's a wonder he managed to hold it together for as long as he did. He was having an affair, but not just any affair. His secret lover was his 21-year-old stepson, Harrison. Can you imagine the guilt and shame he must have felt? Sneaking around, pretending to be this upstanding family man while harboring this dark and twisted relationship right under Wendy's nose. It didn't stop there, though. Richard wasn't just involved with Harrison. He had this insatiable desire for men and couldn't keep it to himself. He would use the homes he was supposed to be showing as a real estate agent as secret meeting spots for hookups with other men. It was like he had two completely separate lives, the respectable, charming real estate guy and the man indulging in his hidden desires. That kind of deception has a way of eating you alive from the inside out. You can imagine the stress he was under. Every day, keeping this secret life hidden from his wife, his colleagues, and his community. The pressure must have been unbearable, like living with a time bomb ticking in the background. At any moment, everything could fall apart. But Richard didn't stop. He kept the affair with Harrison going and kept meeting other men, pushing the boundaries, knowing that if anyone found out, it would ruin him. Harrison, on the other hand, was caught up in his own emotional storm. He was young, vulnerable, and tangled up in a relationship with his own stepfather. It's not hard to imagine how conflicted he must have felt. But things took a turn when Harrison uncovered Richard's ultimate betrayal. As if their relationship wasn't complicated enough, Harrison found out that Richard had been seeing other men behind his back too. Can you imagine how devastating that must have been for him? Here he was, emotionally involved in this secret, forbidden relationship, only to discover that Richard had been cheating on him, too. It wasn't just the affair anymore, it was a full-blown betrayal. That's when the resentment started to build. Then came June 27th. It was supposed to be just another normal day for Wendy, but what she walked into was a nightmare no one could have predicted. She got home early from work, expecting the house to be quiet, maybe Richard down in the basement working on some files. But something felt off. She called out for him, and when there was no answer, a sense of dread must have settled in. As she walked down into the basement, she noticed the door was ajar. Something small, but enough to make her stomach twist. The sight she found when she stepped inside is something no one should ever have to see. Richard's body was sprawled out on the floor, lifeless, bruised, and battered. A luxury belt was still tightly wrapped around his neck, the clear sign of how he'd been killed. The room was a mess. There were bloodstains on the carpet and furniture, signs of a violent struggle that had taken place in what was once the calm of their home. When the Littleton Police Department arrived at the scene, they were immediately hit with the brutality of Richard Engelbert's murder. His body, still lying in the basement, bore clear signs of a violent struggle, his face bruised and the luxury belt that strangled him still wrapped tightly around his neck. It was a grim and haunting scene that left even the most seasoned investigators taken aback. The house was soon taped off, and investigators began their methodical work, combing through every inch of the home for evidence. The police knew they were dealing with more than just a break-in gone wrong. There was something personal, something deep beneath the surface. They started with the basics: phone records, emails, and text messages. And that's when things took a wild turn. In Richard's phone, they discovered a trail of messages and phone calls to various men, revealing the secret life he had worked so hard to hide. It became clear that Richard's murder might not be random at all. His extramarital affairs, especially his relationship with his stepson Harrison, were becoming key pieces of the puzzle. The investigators couldn't ignore the possibility that Richard's hidden life had caught up with him. As they dug deeper, they stumbled upon something that would change everything. A hidden camera in the basement, disguised as a smoke detector. This wasn't just any camera, it had been recording for weeks. And what it had captured would blow the investigation wide open. This camera had recorded Richard's secret meetings with other men, including Harrison, in the very room where he died. It was chilling to think that the camera had captured the final moments of Richard's life. Once the police uncovered the hidden camera, they knew they had to bring Harrison in for questioning. Initially, Harrison seemed cooperative, even calm as he told his story. He admitted to having an affair with his stepfather, a relationship that had lasted 2 years. You can imagine the emotional weight Harrison carried, living in the shadow of a forbidden love, torn between guilt and resentment. He revealed that while he had been deeply conflicted about their relationship, he had recently ended the affair after finding out that Richard had been cheating on him with other men. At first, Harrison's alibi for the night of the murder seemed airtight. He had been working at the bar, and several witnesses confirmed that he was there during the time of Richard's death. But the police weren't ready to let go of Harrison just yet. With the hidden camera footage in hand, they had undeniable evidence of what had really happened in that basement. When they confronted Harrison with the footage, his calm exterior quickly fell apart. The video showed everything. The heated argument between him and Richard, the moment things got physical, and finally, the horrifying moment when Harrison, in a fit of rage, grabbed the belt and wrapped it around Richard's neck. You can almost feel the tension in that room as the truth unfolded. Harrison had no choice but to confess. He broke down, overwhelmed by the guilt and the sheer weight of what he had done. In that moment, it was clear that this wasn't just a random act of violence. It was the result of years of emotional turmoil, betrayal, and manipulation. Harrison had reached his breaking point, and now the devastating consequences were laid bare for everyone to see. With Harrison's confession and the damning video evidence, the police wasted no time. Harrison was arrested, and the once quiet neighborhood was now buzzing with the news. The trial that followed was nothing short of a spectacle. The prosecution painted Harrison as a young man consumed by rage and jealousy, driven to murder by the ultimate betrayal. They emphasized the brutality of the crime, using the hidden camera footage and Harrison's confession to show the jury exactly how violent the murder had been. It wasn't easy to watch, the video made sure of that. There was no denying the viciousness of the act. But Harrison's defense team had a different story to tell. They argued that he wasn't some cold-blooded killer. Rather, he was a troubled young man who had been emotionally manipulated by Richard. The jury found Harrison guilty of second-degree murder. It wasn't premeditated, but it was still murder. He was sentenced to 25 years in prison without the possibility of parole. Some felt the sentence was just given the emotional complexity of the case. Others thought it was too lenient, considering the brutality of the crime. But for the Engelbert family, no sentence could ever bring back what had been lost. The community was left to grapple with the aftermath of a story that was as tragic as it was twisted. So what are your thoughts on this? Let us know in the comments below.